Hello, I'm Cristina Souza and I'm a PhD student at the University of Porto, Portugal. My co-author is my PhD advisor, Professor Isabel Chagas, that is a professor from the University of Lisbon in Portugal. Our work is entitled Using Nature of Science Enriched-PBL in Pre-Service Science Teacher Education. What is nature of science? The nature of science refers to the epistemology and sociology of science, science as a way of knowing, and values and beliefs related with the scientific knowledge and its development. And why nature of science? Because students' informed views of nature of science constitute a central goal for K-12 science education, given its relevance for the development of science literacy. Several authors have described that its implementation is rather deficient due to the lack of professional skills to teach nature of science. It is described that pre-service biology teachers held both correct conceptions and misconceptions about nature of science, which highlights the need to address these issues in initial teacher training programs. How can we address this? There are several learning methods that are adequate to both science and nature of science learning, such as inquiry based learning, project based learning, and problem based learning. These methods are adequate since they promote several skills such as questioning, communication, argumentation, and cooperation. We decided to use PBL since it also promotes prior knowledge activation and has been applied by us and also thoroughly applied in higher education. The purpose of this study was to describe how students of a pre-service science teacher education program assess a nature of science enriched PBL approach. And this was accomplished by presenting to the students an integrative problem, including aspects of nature of science, about a socio-scientific issue, the impact of invasive species in the extinction of native species. In terms of methodology, this is an interpretative exploratory study that was conducted in the current academic year in a 120 minutes session of a biology and geology didactics course of a Portuguese university master's program in biology and geology teaching. A qualitative and descriptive approach was implemented in which both researchers were present. One taught the session and the other one took observation notes. The participants in this study were 8 master students, 5 females and 3 males, attending the course that accepted to participate in the study and signed the informed consent form. They were in the first year of the 2-year master program. And how did we implement this? A PBL methodology was used, and according to it, a ill-structured problem was presented to the students. It was about the consequences of the introduction of invasive plants in ecosystems. After reading, brainstorming, and discussing in small groups of 2 or 3 students about the problem, students searched for information on recommended websites. Finally, each group presented to the whole group their proposed solutions, and all the proposals were discussed. Students were also asked to identify aspects of nature of science in the problem situation and were asked to fulfill a handout that worked as a hard scaffold designed for middle school students while dealing with the problem situation. And how was the data collected? We used an anonymous questionnaire for assessing the learning process with a Likert scale 1 to 5 that was adapted from other authors. The students' answers identifying the nature of science items, the students' comments about the handout, and our observation notes were analyzed. What results did we obtain? In general, students considered the learning process positive as shown by their responses to the items of the questionnaire that are assembled according to the topics: teacher support, quality of the problem, and resources provided, and students' role and interaction. About teacher support, all the students considered that the teacher directed them with pertinent questions, stimulated them to exploit prior knowledge, gave them clues instead of the correct answer when asked a question, and also that the teacher promoted questioning by all the students in each group, encouraged them to express their own ideas clearly. Most students consider that the teacher asked them how they came to the solution and what reasoning they followed. About the quality of the problem and resources provided, the majority of students considered that the problem presented had several solutions, that it was written in a comprehensible language, and it was interesting and it stimulated motivation towards learning. Students considered that resources made available for the research were adequate and that the scaffold provided promoted a structured learning. About the students' role and interaction, all the students said that they participated in the group work, and when they came across something they didn't understand, they first consulted with a fellow student and then consulted the teacher, and that they collected and selected relevant information for the group work. Most students considered that they raised pertinent questions and were able to propose a solution to the problem. All the students considered that they responded to the pertinent questions they have raised, discussed with colleagues in the group with respect for different ideas, performed an important role in their own learning process, and justified their opinions using scientific arguments. About the science content of the intervention, each group presented a different solution to the class, and all solutions were discussed. The solutions presented were neutralize the pH of the soil, introduce a plant-specific virus that affects the invasive plant, and the manual removal of all parts of the invasive plant. About the nature of science content of the intervention, all the students were actively engaged in the process of solving the problem situation and were able to identify the nature of science items included, such as the scientific methods, interaction between scientists, and importance of publishing. Students were also able to make comments about the handout that they considered too dense, too demanding, and too long for middle school students. Giving the positive way students react to the Nature of Science Enriched-PBL task, it is pertinent to conclude that life sciences problems about timely themes included in the national curriculum of life and earth sciences at the middle and high school level, grades 8 and 10, integrated with nature of science aspects and several curriculum objectives may constitute an applied learning method for pre-service science teacher education. To conclude, this proposal is according to other authors that have suggested critical and reflexive reading of cases for nature of science teaching, and that highly contextualized nature of science instruction may induce students' connection to science knowledge. We also consider that integrative problems Nature of Science Enriched-PBL may be used for many different purposes, for instance, in order to ask pre-service teachers to identify the curricular objectives addressed in each problem. We'd like to acknowledge the financial support by University of Porto and University of Lisbon, and we also would like to acknowledge the master students that participated in the study.